Well, hey guys, welcome to Star Wars on High. Thank you for stopping by. We are back. I'm Josh, that's Jimmy, and today we are going to now revisit Kenobi. Now that we've wrapped up, we're going to take a look at it as a full series and see if it was successful and address some of the fan complaints we saw throughout the show and see if they were resolved. So, we made like a part one to this kind of a couple weeks ago. We called In Defense of Kenobi. I'll get it linked up here and down below, and we went over some of the community complaints, and we want to look at those now 3 episodes later and see if they aged well. Spoiler alert, I don't think many of them did. I think we were right in being patient, and we'll just talk throughout this episode about our enjoyment of the show and whether we thought it was successful or not. So sit down, buckle up, and enjoy some Kenobi finale talk and the whole show in general. It's going to be spoiler filled, so if you have not caught up yet, go ahead, click away, wrap it up, and let's get to it. So Jimmy, let's get us started here with just a general question before we dive into the specifics. How was Kenobi to you as a 6-part series? Was it successful? Did it meet your expectations?
Yeah, I thought it was great. Like, I didn't have much of an expectation going into this because my biggest thing was up until that point, I was like, I figured he spent that entire 19-year span on Tatooine. What story could they possibly tell that is going to grip me and want me to watch him be in a desert for 6 episodes?
Yeah.
And they did something I was not expecting, and I'm completely happy with it.
Yeah, and I'll hop in with my thoughts. For those who've seen our review on the channel, like I really like this series, and I'm going to probably say this a lot throughout the episode, but I just want to make sure it's totally clear. I'm not saying this is perfect and flawless and there was never any mistakes made. Not at all. But I did have a fantastic time with the show, and I'm very happy we got this inside of the Star Wars universe. It's going to be a very worthy rewatch, and when you have a friend or, maybe your future child or whatever, and you're showing them Star Wars for the first time, I'm going to be excited to get to this episode, to this series, excuse me, and show them this story because I think they're going to have a lot of fun with it. And I actually think, and we'll talk about this in more detail, I think it absolutely enhanced the all the trilogies. Honestly, I think it made the whole prequel era better. I think it made A New Hope a lot better for a number of reasons. So overall, huge success to me. And for those who disagree, that is a bummer. I wish you had more fun with it, but I think that was the impression that Jimmy and I had. So I want to take a look at some of the main complaints we heard. One of the ones we talked about last week was, or should I say a couple weeks back after episode 3, was a lot of complaints about Kenobi being soft. This was after the fight with Vader, where Vader just completely overwhelmed him, and Kenobi seemed reluctant time and time again to use the Force, to use his lightsaber. And a lot of fans felt like they were making him a pacifist, and we discussed in an episode that it was quite obvious, at least to me, that it was about him regaining that connection with the Force and that willingness to fight and that willingness to stand up to Vader, or Anakin, his old friend, and also to re-embrace, the light side of the Force and become in balance. And I think by the end of the episode, you see him with supreme confidence, a really solid connection to the Force, which is why he's eventually able to see Qui-Gon Jinn in the very last shot. So I think they were simply building Kenobi's struggle, and that really played out. And if you watch all 6 episodes, I think it's pretty clear he was not soft in any way. In fact, in the last episode, you could argue he went very, very hard. But I don't know, Jimmy, what did you think? Was Kenobi different than you expected? Was he soft? Was he too much of a pacifist, or was it just the story arc?
No, I think the story arc told exactly the story it was supposed to. This is a story of trying to overcome fears and learning to forgive yourself. That's exactly the tone that I got from this, especially from watching how it started to how it ended. That is just perfectly what I thought of this. This is a story of, self-care and forgiveness and overcoming like irrational fears almost.
I agree. The fear is something I honed in on as well with the last episode. I talked about this in the stream on Thursday. I absolutely loved the attitude of Obi-Wan at the end. This almost confidence had returned. This at peace with himself, like ready for the next mission. He let go of his fear of having to watch Luke constantly and said, hey, things are going to turn out the way they're supposed to be. I trust in the Force. I trust in balance. I'm not going to let fear dictate what I'm doing in this time. And I thought it was so powerful. And that's why at the end, Qui-Gon's like, hey, I've been here the whole time. You just weren't ready. And Obi-Wan looked completely a changed man at the end. And I think through this 6-episode arc, it was a big payoff to see him kind of return to the Obi-Wan, lined up a lot with who I expect to see when A New Hope rolls around. So I think it was done really, really well. At least his character arc and how he he let go of that like you said, that regret and that loss, and kind of accepted and became back in balance. So that was really well done.
Yeah, completely agree. I mean, it's well warranted. It was going to happen, and it's a very full, complete story.
Now, one of the other main issues, we tackled this, I think, second in our video last time as well, is that it's going to ruin A New Hope. And this idea, I think, first came out when it started to come out that there would be a rematch between Vader and Obi-Wan. And you and I made a 20-minute video explaining why I thought that did not break canon in any way. So I don't want to repeat the same points over and over again, because I could talk about that all day. But I led off in the video and I said, I think this actually enhanced A New Hope. And it did for me in so many ways. I'm going to call it a few, and then I'll pass it over to Jimmy for some of his. But the main ones that stick out to me is absolutely the whole Alderaan society, the planet being given more character, more life, the Organa family being shown, Leia's kind of upbringing. I think that completely makes everything that happens in A New Hope even more impactful, and continues to help flesh out the Leia character in a really rewarding way. And so that's like the first thing. I'm like, okay, cool. When I watch A New Hope now, understanding what she's gone through, what the society's like, what this planet, what's at stake when she gives up Alderaan, is just so much greater to me now. And so that right off the bat is now a huge, interesting thing I'm going to take into a rewatch of The New Hope. What were some of the things that stuck out for you as far as enhancing the original trilogy?
It's shocking that you say that, because I completely forgot about the Alderaan stuff, and that is such a crucial part of it, because we talk about this all the time. When Alderaan gets destroyed, we're like, oh man, they just blew up a whole planet.
Yeah.
What happens next? We don't take the time to actually get to learn anything about Alderaan.
Yep.
So this is very crucial to that for me. Specifically the finale, the second fight between Vader and Obi-Wan really just solidifies the fight in A New Hope for me.
Yeah.
This is what I'm personally going to say. I understand everyone's
Sure.
I know there's going to be people that disagree with me, basically,
Sure.
but because I'm always trying to see how can I align the lines from that movie with what we're seeing in the show. So let's go back to when I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master. I'm taking that from this fight as, when I left you in that hole, I thought I was done and I walked away, and that was my mistake. I was not certain that you were dead, and as a result, I was still the learner. I had much to learn, and I lost that fight because of this.
Interesting. I like that. I didn't even think about that, Jimmy.
And when we go back to it, I can go deeper into this. A presence I've not felt since ... That's one of our favorites.
Yeah.
It's much different. The presence of Obi-Wan that he felt in episode 3 was a weak, crippled, just shell of a man. The sheer power and the ability he has when he calls upon the Force in this finale fight, that is full-blown Kenobi. That is the presence he's talking about. So when he comes back in the Death Star, he's ready. He's like, it's the same mentality he had before that second fight of when he was talking with Qui-Gon. He said, whether it's me or him, this has to end right now. I have to do this. Same mentality when he walks into the Death Star. A presence I've not felt since I kind of got my whole life rocked there a little bit,
Yeah, two comments to lean in right with you're talking about. It's staying in that same fight. One of my absolute favorite scenes, maybe one of my favorite Star Wars scenes of all time, is the final kind of conversation between Anakin, Vader, and Obi-Wan in this fight, where he talks about how you didn't kill Obi-Wan, I did. And I've heard so many people interpret this differently. When I read it, I took it as, when I listened to it, I took it as, it was Anakin, Vader trying to like strike a blow to Obi-Wan. Like, that's not your victory. Like, I did that. I killed Anakin. You don't get any credit for doing anything to Anakin. Almost like he was, thought he was taking away a victory from Obi-Wan's arsenal, and that's why it kind of turns red. And I've heard other fans say that was kind of the last bit of Anakin leaking through and relieving Obi-Wan of that guilt. And so either way you look at it, I think that was a very powerful moment. But why I like that is it flows so well into A New Hope, because it finally allowed Obi-Wan to accept Anakin was gone. Because did you see the tears in Obi-Wan's eyes multiple times in this show when he saw Anakin again? That's what we would have expected to see in A New Hope. But in A New Hope, he talks about him. He calls him Darth. He fights him. He's like, oh, nothing but a master of evil. And then he kind of accepts death. That doesn't make any sense given with what we saw in Revenge of the Sith. We would have thought he would have like said one thing like, hey, I missed you, old friend, or I'm sorry, Anakin, or anything like that before dying. But he never did. And so it never really mixed well for me. But now it makes so much more sense. He had that moment. He had that moment 10 years ago. And he realized his friend really was gone. He came to that closure. And that's why he tells Luke, Darth Vader murdered your father. And it fits really well. So I think that really enhanced it for me. Just really, really, and it heightened A New Hope for me in that confrontation in major ways. And for some it didn't. So I get that I'm just talking for personal experience. I think that was really well executed.
And I think it just fits perfectly, like with what he says in the first fight. He says, "What have you become?" And he says, "I am what you made me." Kind of lingering to the fact is like, you killed Anakin and I took his place. It's more so you physically ripped my body to pieces.
Yeah.
I have to wear this suit now. The suit is your fault.
Yeah.
Anakin being killed and replaced with me, I did that.
Yeah. When I stormed the temple before I was ever met you on Mustafar.
Exactly what he needed to hear to realize, it's not 100% his fault.
Yeah.
Which is important when you're like sitting there with the kind of thought process of, I am responsible for training the man that just flipped the galaxy.
Sure.
Yeah. All of the blame's on you.
Everyone he knew was dead, left for good. I thought that, it was a really good moment. And now I feel so much more like satisfied with the relationship because I'll be honest with you guys. Like, you guys know me, I'm a super prequel fan. Where they ended in Revenge of the Sith, their rematch in A New Hope never really had the emotional weight I would have expected given where they left. Obi-Wan barely acted like he knew him, right? He did. He barely acted like he knew him. Kind of begs the question, was it written that way originally for them to actually be the same person? But we'll never know. And I think regardless, this really enhanced it. And also kind of helped, the kind of always memed line where, Obi-Wan calls him Darth, which was weird because like it makes it sound like it's his first name, even though Darth is a title that the Sith use. And so here at the end, I thought it was like kind of a nice little callback too, where he's like, goodbye, Darth, a little sassy almost. Yeah, I felt like. That was great. Yeah, and so I thought that helped like that connection there as well. So overall, I mean, I think just on rewatch of The New Hope, I'm really gonna appreciate the fact that I've got to see them, in that last kind of confrontation. I really liked how Palpatine treated Vader after it as well. Kind of like, oh, you're getting a little weak because you're, got an emotional connection to your old master. That fits so well with the characters as well. So I was very pleased. I mean, honestly, the last episode alone really gave me a lot of fulfillment in their relationship, but that emotional goodbye and everything there. I thought that moment alone was kind of worth the price of admission for me. But regardless, just some examples of how we think it enhanced A New Hope. And there are more we could dive into, but for time's sake, I'd like to hop to kind of a two-parter, which was the Inquisitors as a whole. So a lot of the complaints were around, oh, the Grand Inquisitor's dead. Okay, so everyone, we all knew that wasn't going to happen, guys. So I don't think a lot of fans are really upset about this. I think it was just like a vocal small group. Like, guys, we all knew they weren't going to kill their Grand Inquisitor, not bring him back. Like, they aren't that. They're not just dismissing rebels. I mean, it was so silly for people to act like, oh, it broke canon, they just killed their Grand Inquisitor. He was obviously coming back. So I'm not going to spend much more time on it than that, but I think a lot of us knew that was going to happen. And so for the folks who didn't think it would, I mean, it ended up panning out that way. And I thought a really good moment in episode 5 when he returned. Very arrogant and cocky like you'd expect. And the Inquisitors as a whole, I've heard a lot of people say the Inquisitors didn't work for me. My response there would be, we'll talk about Reva in more detail in a second. The Inquisitors were never the main villain of the show. They were basically kind of like the side minions. Vader was the main villain. He had a lot more screen time than I think a lot of people expected. A lot in episode 3, a lot in episode 5, and a lot in episode 6. The only episode he really wasn't super active in was episode 1. And he had moments throughout every episode and was that main driving force outside of Reva, who we'll talk about in a second. But the Inquisitors for you, Jimmy, a lot of fans weren't pleased with them early on. Did it rectify itself in the end? Did you care about the Inquisitors? Was there missed opportunity? Maybe there was some opportunity to see them. We never saw the flying helicopter
Oh,
blade.
that's right. I didn't even think
So
about that.
that is a miss. I will dock the show for that. I never got
Yeah,
to see
I
that.
think that's a miss. That would have been so funny to see that.
I agree. But what
Man,
else about
imagine
the
if
Inquisitors?
If Reva tried to like use that to get away, and Vader was like, "No, no, 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 no."
Funny.
The Inquisitors were eye candy.
It's fair enough. They
I
weren't
mean,
rebels. I felt like.
because like we had this big thing between the fourth sister, the fifth brother, and third sister, and the Grand Inquisitor, and then we just kind of forgot about all of them except for Reva. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what it was. An episode. Well, I guess there's only 2 episodes left, so there's not much else they can do. But we only get a glimpse of the fifth brother in episode 4.
I
And then
liked him
that's
a
it.
lot. I liked his performance. I wish we'd have got more of him a little bit.
Yeah, I was gonna say fifth brother was great. Fourth sister was cool. I'm still believing that she's a new
Yeah.
Inquisitor. Like, obviously was established, but decided to use her here because I don't think they have used her in anything else. But it's just, it was there for eye candy. The same thing with the Purge Troopers that we had in episode
Yeah.
4. Like, they were awesome, but they didn't really do much.
And to maybe
Um,
lean into what you're saying, Jimmy, before you drop that point, like I'm some people will say, yeah, like Jimmy's saying they're eye candy, not disappointing to me. I wanted to see more Inquisitors. And if that was your expectation, fair enough, right? Because they weren't used to full extent. But you can see this poster behind me from Kenobi that I got, this display I'm using. Like, I'm very satisfied Vader was the main villain. I think if you just would have pulled out Vader in the last episode and tried to make the Inquisitors the main villain, it would have been much more disappointing. So I'm actually pretty okay with the Inquisitors being nothing more than lackeys. But go ahead, Jimmy.
I think it would have been a little better if it was just the Grand Inquisitor and Reva. I think that would have
Sure.
been a little more cohesive. Does the Inquisitor's performance take away from the show? No. But I also think the show would have been just as fine without Inquisitors.
It was, I don't know, like you could argue they were. We've talked about this a lot. Where the Inquisitors, I think, are never as impressive as like they look really cool and they don't do a whole lot. They did in Rebels. They consistently got outmaneuvered, out handled by a really ragtag group here. No, not even not Jedi Masters, but rogue Jedi and some bounty hunters, and they lost like every confrontation outside of one. And
it's a perfect example of like, and the Inquisitors sound great on paper. In practice,
this show really highlighted how weaker they are than Sith Lords too. In episode 3, they're like afraid of Vader when he's walking down that hallway, and then obviously you see Reva versus Vader. It's like a joke, and I like that they did that. I like that they did that because some average fans, like who aren't big into the lore, might be like, "Oh wow, there's a lot of Sith out there. Look at all these Sith with red lightsabers," and they're like, "No, no, no, no. Like they're not Sith. Vader's a Sith Lord. These guys aren't." Yeah. So I did like that about it. Now let's focus in on Reva a little bit. A lot of fans were very much, and I'm not talking about the terrible things people said to her on the internet. That's not even worth treating like legit criticism. That's just bad, mean, terrible things we shouldn't say to people. So that's obviously not okay. But let's talk about the people who had problems with her character arc specifically, not the person. And how they thought, oh, she's taking up too much screen time and she's not very interesting. And, what's her motivation? How does she know Anakin is Vader? All those things. I want to focus with the too much screen time. I don't know if anyone's done it yet, but maybe I just had a different feel for the show. But I never really felt like she detracted from Kenobi's time. And I know some people might point to episode 6 where the fight was broken up with Reva moments. And I would just simply note, like, did you guys watch Revenge of the Sith? That fight consistently had moments that broke it up. It just wasn't a 7-minute uninterrupted fight. It's good to give the audience a breather and then return, especially because there was tension building in the other storyline as well. So I thought it was fine. But personally for me, I never felt like Reva took away from Kenobi. And it became a Reva show. I heard about that a lot, and I don't know. I felt maybe I got to look at the screen time, and if there's a breakdown, and maybe she had more than I thought. But I never felt like she took away from Kenobi or from Vader. And in fact, for fans who are like, oh, they're writing her to be too powerful, she knows too much, it's revealed that her plan was terrible. Everyone knew about it. Vader dismissed her easily, handled her completely. Everyone was on to her attempt to use Vader, or to use Kenobi to get to Vader. And so everyone who talked about how she's written, with plot armor, yada, yada, at the end, she ended up falling completely on her face and turned out to not be a threat to the Empire at all. So I think a lot of those complaints were answered as well. She wasn't some over-powerful character they introduced. No, she was a frightened kid who tried to use fear and her anger to fuel her and fell because that's what the dark side does. It leads you vulnerable and arrogant. So, Reva, too much screen time, Jimmy, or enough, or what?
We can argue this back and forth all everybody wants to. Um, v- Reva is the main villain. Vader is the big bad villain.
Okay.
And yes, in my brain, there's a difference between those two because that was the
The
main
final
focus
boss.
on the hunt. The hunt is between Reva going after Kenobi. That's why she is the main villain of this story. We already know that Vader's there. We already know that he's looming over the whole thing. He's not supposed to be on screen all the time. That's the thing that makes Vader so perfect is his lack of screen time and his lack of dialogue. Everything he always says, or just every line he's ever had, it's cold, it's collected. He knows what he's saying. Like when she's on the starter, she's like, "It's an honor to be brought aboard," and he's like, "I'm not interested in civilities.
Yeah.
I need you to explain this to me now." Like he's not there for the small
Sure.
talk of it. So I think that's what makes him so much more menacing. But the show itself was about Obi-Wan running from his past and Reva chasing it. So I think that was fine. And when we got her backstory in episode 5, I was like, wow, I never would have thought of that one. I thought it was extremely unique. I'll give her props for getting stabbed twice and surviving. But
do you think she actually got stabbed the first time? I read it as like she hid.
I don't know
I read it
because
as like she
she
hid
says
under her dead friends.
I hid with the bodies, but we see the kind of going back and forth when she
Yeah.
when she's leaning there and Vader's like walking up to stab her, and like we keep getting flashes back to Order 66. I don't know.
I took it as like PTSD flashbacks, but she hid under dead people before he got to her. But I don't
Very,
know.
very, very, very.
I don't know
fair.
because I've heard different interpretations. That was just mine.
But I thought that story was extremely unique, and I thought it worked well.
Okay.
I don't have a single problem with Reva. If they truly want to make a standalone show for her, I will watch it.
I could maybe argue that. I mean, for me, like, there's no doubt that her strongest moment was in episode 5. Well, her big emotional moment was in episode 5. And so before that, maybe you didn't feel like she really had a really great character moment or a really great character scene until the last 2 episodes. And I think that's just like, it's a side effect of the format of the show because you had like a 30-minute episode and a week break and a 40-minute episode and a week break and a 30-minute episode and a week break. It felt like, golly, like Reva's not really advancing. You know, have a week to kind of, I think if you would have watched it as one, like if it all came out in the same day, we all binge watched the show, I think we would have felt a lot more like the story moved at a little more effective pace. So,
yeah, and I mean, I guess for me at least, that's what I do with every TV show I watch, be it, like I watch all the DC shows like Arrow and Flash and all that. When like there's big pin dropping moments and all that where like something's being kept hidden, I'm like, well, they're not going to tell me. No, I'm just always assuming I have to wait to the finale to figure it out. Whether it's a 6-episode season or one of those, or it's like any anime that's got like 24 episodes in a season, I'm just going to expect to wait until the very end to get all the answers I need because that's how you keep people coming back to watch.
Sure. And I would say, to lean into the thing I said right at the beginning of the stream, I'm not in any way personally saying the execution of the Inquisitors of Reva was perfect all the time. It wasn't. There were some lines that could have been crisper, some moments I think could have been filmed better. I think her chase scene wasn't like, could have been filmed a little tighter and had her doing some more impressive things. I think there were some things that would have improved on execution wise, but I think as a character, the hype that people tried to bring at the beginning that she was ruining the show, I think was nothing but manufactured. Even if you don't love the character, you're like, man, I really don't care about Reva. Like, I really don't care. I think that's fine. But I in no way think she ruined the show in any way. I think that was just nothing but kind of narrative spin that got started. One other thing on the Reva subline this has reminded me of, connecting it to our point before about improving A New Hope. Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru, like they got improved moment, a real care for Luke that we didn't know about really until, I mean, we did because of Revenge of the Sith, but like getting to see how much they cared for him and they protected him, it really enhances those characters and makes when they die and crispy nuggets much sadder. Because I never cared about those characters. Like I kind of, the prequel fan in me, but like now I'm like, oh man, like they really cared about Luke. They aren't those cranky old kind of hardened farmers. They were there. They stood up for him. They risked their lives for him. And I think that was another fantastic addition to the Star Wars anthology. 2 new characters getting a spotlight that's been here from the beginning. They really have an enhanced
And
look now.
they knocked it out of the
Yeah,
park.
they did.
Like you could just like Joel Edgerton is just so good in that role. And the fight against Reva where she's like, you care for him like he's your own, and he just says he is my
Yeah,
own.
I like that a lot.
I was crying. I was like, oh, he cares so much. It hurts.
I like that a
Like it
lot.
was just
Yeah.
delivered so well. He's like, you're not getting to him. I'm not gonna let you.
Yeah. I like
So
that a
good.
lot. I like that a lot. One other thing that's a quicker point I want to talk about is Leia. There were a lot of fans talking about how Leia having this interaction with Kenobi kind of ruined A New Hope because it didn't seem like she knew him in any way. I think they addressed that quite well.
In
You know,
one sense.
yeah, and a lot of fans have called this out even before the episode, which was like when she's making her request is like it's more of a formal style. She's making like an official call. You know, she's not like, "Hey, Obi, it's your old friend Leia." Could she have done that? I mean, sure. I'm not saying like it makes total sense, but it's also not out of the realm of possibilities. Number one. Number two, like you said, there is a line in the finale that kind of addresses, you know, what goes on there. And in A New Hope, unless my memory is failing me, I do recall when she's aware that Obi-Wan has come, she's kind of like, you know, she doesn't act like, oh, good, I've never met this man before. She kind of like jumps at the, like, oh, great, where is he? You know, like
Yeah,
not
it's
like,
I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm here to rescue you. You're who? I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm here to rescue. I forgot you're R2. I'm here with Ben Kenobi. Ben Kenobi, where is he?
yeah, exactly.
Come on. It's the
And
exact.
yeah.
Why do I know this?
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. And that's the line I'm looking for. And so I think that implies to me a relationship, like a known, I mean, maybe not like they're best friends again. I don't know if 4 days, 10 years ago qualifies. I mean, I'm sure it would have been very
If I'm
impactful.
like, like someone's like, Josh, we're here to rescue. We're here with Jimmy. You're like, oh, I know him.
Yeah.
It's not, I'm here with Ben Kenobi. Okay.
It also would have been kind of weird for like, oh, thank God he's here. We ran from the Empire 10 years ago. Didn't really seem appropriate at that moment. And a lot of Star Wars is not explained. So this is the other thing too. Like, guys, we have to be honest with ourselves here. A lot of George's vision absolutely changed when he wrote the prequels. We know this. Leia talks about remembering their mother. She doesn't. Okay. There's obvious. I really don't believe George originally intended for Luke and Leia to be siblings. The kiss, I don't think he wrote it like that. I think that was something he kind of tweaked later in life. And my point is he made changes when he was like, okay, I found a better way. I think this is a much more impactful way to do this. And so I'm not going to be beholden to a line I wrote I'm just going to do the better story element. It's going to work better. And so my only point is does Star Wars fit together seamlessly? No, it didn't before Kenobi. And that's my point. Like, we've always been okay with this. We've always understood this. Star Wars is a little wonky in a great way. It's a little goofy in the best way. It's why we love it. It has charm. It never takes itself it takes itself seriously. I love that about Star Wars, but it never takes itself so seriously that it prevents itself from telling interesting tales. It's absolutely known, as our friend Timeline, Ben from Star Wars Timeline talks about a lot. George had commissioned artwork of Anakin with the babies, like with Leia, because originally the idea was like Anakin left the family, not that he never knew they existed. Like, that was not kind of his original, like, so regardless of how things turned out, we have to understand sometimes we can make small adjustments to tell a better cohesive story. And I think the Leia one kind of fits in that category for me. And
yeah, absolutely agree.
Another piece of that is like a lot of people are like, well, Luke hadn't seen a lightsaber until A New Hope. I don't think he ever saw her lightsaber. I think he was already out of the roof by the time she came in with the red lightsaber. I don't know. I heard some people talk about that too.
Also, we can also go into the fact that, sure, she had a lightsaber. It was pitch black outside. Even in the episode, you can't see anything.
Yeah.
You expect him to be like, oh, I know what that is. No, it's like you just hand him something. Not also every lightsaber is different. There's also a drastic difference between Refa's lightsaber and the lightsaber that Luke gets.
And he never, like, it was never ignited when he saw it. He was out of that room when she came in ignited, so I don't think he ever saw it. I mean, I don't know. Again, to me, that's kind of like, whatever. But if that bothers you, I understand it as well. I want to spend the last 10 minutes here, Jimmy, 5-10 minutes here, because we are long on time. If you made it this far in the video, your code word is banana sundae.
Nice.
Because if I see that, I'm like, what the? Oh, I remember told people to put banana sundae. I want to talk about the fight. We might need to make a whole separate video on just this. 2 fights in the show: Kenobi versus Vader. Yeah, I absolutely loved the two confrontations. I have no problem with them meeting before A New Hope. I think it enhances their confrontation in A New Hope. I think it's enhanced the legacy of Obi-Wan, Vader, Anakin, whatever you want to call it. It's completely enhanced it. The first fight was a skirmish where Vader completely flexed, and the final one was a heartfelt battle between brothers, and well, old brothers. And I thought it was had a very emotional conclusion, as we already talked about. And additionally, were there things about it that I would like? Yeah, there was a little bit of shaky cam in the fight that could have been cleaned up a little. When I watched it on my monitor, I noticed it way less than when I went and watched it on my big screen. Like, I feel like I just, because it's bigger in scale, I noticed it more. So yeah, the shaky cam was sometimes a little distracting, I'll agree. But I think these are absolutely amazing fight scenes, especially the conclusion. The scenery was awesome. The score was awesome. The visuals were awesome. Some really cool moments, from Vader's like earth bending crush to Obi-Wan's rock lift to the
I
broken
thought that was
mask.
so cool.
There was so much cool in that fight. So even people who just love like over the top fun force fights, this one gave you something really good as well. So I think absolutely fits in the hall of great Star Wars fights. And again, it goes to it's enhanced the relationship to me. I like the fact that Vader and Obi-Wan have had many skirmishes over time, dating all the way back to Revenge of the Sith. I always felt like if they only fought twice, and the second fight looks really, really, really lame in comparison. But now, to me, I think it's helped kind of satisfy that appetite I had. So that's my feeling on the two fights. Two thumbs up. I'm very happy we got to see him. I don't know. I'm pleased. I'm glad I got this poster with the Vader helmet and then them clashing behind, because I'm now happy that fight scene was in there, and I can remember that awesome duel and rewatch it over and over and over again. I've already watched it 6-7 times now. So one of my favorites up there at the top. Duel of the Fates is so darn good. You can't beat Duel of the Fates and the Mustafar fight. Those two fights are just so good. But this is up there with because of the emotional impact of it and some of the force powers on display. What do you think about the 2-round fights, Jimmy? Which one did you like better, first of all? And, how do they fit now in the picture of Star Wars lightsaber battles and A New Hope?
I like the second fight more. I think the first fight has a stronger message.
Oh, okay.
But the emotional impact of the second fight is more prominent. Let me try to break that down. The first fight isn't really a fight. It is Obi-Wan holding on for dear life.
Yeah.
He's not actively trying to fight back. He's actively trying to stay alive.
Yeah.
And the second fight is him realizing that I have to be who I was to actually take on this fight, because now it is a matter of Luke and Leia, and it is of utmost importance. I made this comment in the first video we did where I said, when we were talking about the first fight, we had mentioned that, obviously Obi-Wan was not up to par with Vader, and a lot of people were upset about that. And I made the comment of, take anyone who has been in a profession their entire life and take them out of it for 10 years and put them right back. They're going to be extremely rusty. They're not going to be as good as they were when they stopped. But it is going to be like riding a bike. You will pick it up quicker because you've done it your entire life.
Well, especially given he was so surprised by Anakin. It wasn't like
he's been... Yeah, this was straight up fear. He's like, okay, I guess
He didn't even know he was really alive until...
Yeah.
Like a day before. Like, he just found out like a couple hours ago. And it's not like he's been training 10 years for this adversary. It's like he thought that was done. And so it's kind of reopening old wounds as well. So I think that was fully on display there.
But the emotional impact of what happens in the second fight is what makes it so prominent and makes it it makes the full series, because it's leading to that point.
Yeah.
What is going to happen between these two? And that's the fight where we realize he's like, I have to face my demons here. I have to own up for what I did to you. Only for Anakin to be like, you didn't kill Anakin Skywalker. I did.
Yeah.
And that's what I thought was so powerful when he says, goodbye, Darth. He's like, I can't talk to Anakin anymore. There is no Anakin.
The voice, we didn't really talk about this a ton, but the voice modulation going in and out, the Vader voice to the Anakin voice, was just really, really cool. I liked that a whole lot. It let Hayden act his butt off as well. He got some really good acting moments. For a lot of fans who were complaining about not seeing Hayden, we got our Clone Wars flashback, and we got our Attack of the Clones flashback, really, or in that time frame, as well as I thought a really, really emotional goodbye with him and Obi-Wan, and I thought he acted his butt off. And so fans were like, "Why'd you bring him back?" It was for that moment right there, and it was pretty darn worth it.
Also, even then, like, why'd you bring him back? I don't know. They asked him and he wanted to. Like, that's his
Yeah.
decision.
Of course. Like you never
I
had
don't mean to get I don't mean to get logistic with it, but I mean, like, come
no,
on.
you never had to explain it. But there were fans who were like, "Why'd you bring him back if you're never going to show him?" And it was like, first of all, guys, you know they're going to show him. Like, again, the patience thing. But number two is like, okay, not only did they show him, but like he had some phenomenal moments. Like prequel fans were eating good. You know, I don't know. I thought it was definitely worth
Like,
the
I
call.
think he was in the suit more than we realize. I understand that he had 2 stunt doubles. I'm pretty sure one was mainly for walking. And like walking in that thing is not easy. Like he even mentioned it when he wore the suit in
Mm-hmm.
Revenge of the Sith. And in the behind the scenes, he was like, it was an honor to wear it, but I always felt like I was gonna fall over. Like they literally had to guide him to the steps to like walk up to set because you can't see out of that thing.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Just like stormtrooper helmets.
He talked about it Friday with Jimmy Fallon. He went on the show this Friday, and he talked about how the
Yeah.
suit is like 1,000,000 degrees, and it is so
It has like
hot.
a cooling
Yeah. Yep.
ventilation system built into
And
it.
you
I'm like,
can't
wow,
see when
you're a walking liquid cooled PC.
and you can't see it when you're in it. So he was definitely in that suit. But you know, overall, like, just it's the cherry on top of the show. And to me, a lot of the problems fans had, I think, were wrapped up. Now, you know, there are folks like Eckhart Sider said, like, there was a ton of execution problems, but overall it was strong. You know, it could have been more polished. And again, I would agree. But I guess this is what I find kind of humorous as a prequel era fan. I could say the exact same thing about the prequel eras. My favorite Star Wars movies, easily, absolutely have execution problems. They absolutely have some script moments that could be tighter. There's some effects that aren't perfect, but they nail the important things so well. The actors have that connection. They get across the message in effective ways in the end. And if there's bumps on the road, it doesn't matter. I think the overall package is so heartfelt, so enjoyable, and so impactful that I love those movies more than any Star Wars ever. I would watch Revenge of the Sith over The Empire Strikes Back any day of the week. I would watch Phantom Menace over A New Hope just because I grew up on those movies. Those mean something to me. And they were not perfect either. And so it could just be the prequel fan in me, but I think Kenobi absolutely falls in that same vein. Yeah, there's execution problems. They could have done some things better, tightened some things up, maybe used some better shaky cam moments. I will also note they filmed all of this in California during COVID, so they might have been kind of restricted on what they could even do. So I'll cut them some slack. But all that aside, execution problems were there. I don't really care. I loved Kenobi. I thought it was a great time. And I want to know what every one of you thought down below. I know you guys have given us your feedback, but let us know, what were these problems prevalent for you? Do you think they were resolved? And if you just didn't like it, that's okay too. You know, if it's just not for you, that's fine. Hopefully Andor, Bad Batch Season 2, Tales of the Jedi is all more your speed, and you have a great fall in Star Wars. But I overall am extremely happy this is part of the Star Wars universe and the Skywalker saga. And if this is the last time I see these two actors on screen together, I'm very, very happy this was their send-off. I think it was well worth the wait. Jimmy, any closing thoughts for you on Kenobi?
Yeah, I'm just like, wow, yeah, you summed that up perfectly. Like you said, yeah, there were execution problems. It could have been better. Every Star Wars movie could have been better. Every Star Wars show could have been better. But you know what? I'm happy with what we got because I enjoy it. And you know, like to your point, you know, if you don't like Kenobi, that's fine. I hate that for you because I know this is a show that everyone wanted to love.
Yeah.
But hopefully something else coming out is something you're excited for and will meet your expectations. Like I truly hope that.
Yeah.
I don't want like a fan walking away saying they hate it because there was one show they didn't like or one movie they didn't like. I really want them to find something that they can stick with, you know?
Yeah, totally, 100%. Mandalorian coming out next year as well. A lot on the horizon. And again, I think the show had so much weight on it, so much expectations on it. And overall, I think delivered. I mean, oh my gosh, like I'm a fan of Book of Boba Fett, but I think there was a lot more to be desired in Book of Boba Fett than this show, for example. And so I think, you know, how Kenobi ended up being released, I mean, I'm pretty happy. I mean, golly, it could have been so much more. For fans who are disappointed, I think it could have been a lot more disappointing than it was for you personally. But not for me. I want that hot toy. I hope we get a hot toy Vader and Obi-Wan I want the Slash mask hot toys so I can pose them across from each other. I think
I
that'd be
want the
really, really cool.
Slash mask bust.
Ooh, I'd love it. I pre-ordered the new Black Series Vader mask from Hasbro. It does not have the crack, but if it did, I would. Oh my gosh, that'd be so cool. I'd want that so bad on the shelf. So, well, thank you guys for stopping by. We appreciate all your support. Again, so much coming in the next couple of months. Make sure you guys are tuned into the channel. Shadow of the Sith comes out later this week, so more Star Wars book on the horizon as well for those fans. Again, thank you guys for being here. We'll talk to y'all again very soon.